Computer.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Divine Brothers podcast, meeting yet again, talking about our weeks all across the world. Yeah. Chase, you just got back from some horse riding. How romantic. How was it, man? Mm.
Horses are cool, man. I like riding horses. I feel a connection with a horse, much like a Southern boy would find a connection with a Corvette or something like that. It's it's always a positive experience, even though I couldn't run them. Like I love to run the horse, but I even just riding felt good.
They never let you run them. Never.
They
I
never
don't know
let you
why.
fucking run them. I told them I was going to do it a couple times, but they just laughed at me. Hey, the other thing I appreciated, this was on the backside of Alabama, of Hawaii. Dean, there was a conversation you could appreciate it. So I was in the front and taking pictures, so everybody grouped up in the middle. And at the back, the front lead chick was cool. At the back, it was like a super Hawaiian dude, like white Hawaiian, tan, dumb. You know what I mean? And he said these two Chinese guys are in front of us. And he goes, "Hey, you guys heard of Antarctica?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, we heard of Antarctica." He goes, "I just watched a documentary on Antarctica. Did you know there's a hole to the center of the Earth and the Earth is flat with ice walls
Uh,
around it?" And
man,
they're like, "Oh, we'll have to see that documentary." He's like, "I will send to you. I'll send to you." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I know these conversations."
every conversation in
Well,
Hawaii. That's
he
so
saw a
common.
YouTube video on it and he was convinced it was true. 100%. Yeah, I love it.
Man, flat earth conversations. Those happen like
Ho
so
and
just
Hollow
every day.
Earth in one,
Yeah.
hollow and flat. Yeah. Which is true. Those
Austin,
are
I
both true. Yes.
also when I took Wu Yin uh to Hawaii, we went to Pahoa, which is like or Puna. Is it Puna or Pahoa? The name of the town. What's it
Well,
called?
Puna's the district, Pahoa's the town. Yeah.
Pahoa is the town. So we go to this town. Like this is his first American experience, and I just happened to take him to like the hippie capital of America. Like this place is fucking just crawling with the most crazed hippies you could ever imagine.
Mm.
And immediately, an old woman who's homeless comes up to Wu Yin, grabs him, and she says to him, "I know you. Go touch that man over there. You have the Chinese medicine, and I know you can heal him. Go touch him right now." And stuff. And he was like, "Oh, okay, whatever you want, American woman." That was his first impression of America, man. Only in Hawaii.
I think that's an
And those,
accurate description of America. That's you gave him a quite normal one. Just lunatic homeless people on the streets. Yeah.
yes, so I mean, it's never like I never felt. I don't know. There are moments where it gets kind of dangerous in Hawaii, and I'm always afraid that like, okay, this is one of those moments. But nah, I never got that way. It was pretty chill.
Nighttime.
And people,
Nighttime's scary down there, not the day. Yeah.
yeah, nighttime scary. I think the scariest though is the local Hawaiian who's unfriendly,
Mm.
who hates you. That's the scariest. They look
Yeah.
at you and they want to cause trouble. You know,
Yeah.
so. I hate those situations. But still, horses are cool. I'm glad you got to do it.
Austin, you ever been riding a horse, man?
I never have. Native Americans didn't have horses in North America or
Those are the
South
Spanish.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they did get them, they called them holy dogs because they didn't have anything else to compare them to. But they were pretty cool. What led you to ride the horses today, Chase? It's kind of out of your comfort zone.
There's one spot on this island. It's called Waipio Valley. It's fucking, it's like jaw-dropping beautiful. It's the most beautiful spot on this island, hands down. And they present it online as horseback riding on the beach in the valley. And I was like, this is what we're fucking doing. Because in the back of the valley, there's waterfalls. So you're on the beach on the horse and you go to the back of the waterfalls. I was like, that's cool. We get there and they're like, oh, we're not allowed to go down there. We're just going to take you up and down the mountain up the top. I was like, motherfuckers. Okay, if they would have pitched that to me, I wouldn't have gone. But it's my favorite part of the island. It's been closed to the public for a long time. I thought it was back open to the public. She's never been, so I wanted her to see it. And yeah, and that was our day. They lied to me. They deceived me, Austin.
Yeah, it's a big day in Huntsville. We got Panoply, which is like an art music festival, and Comic Con happening on the same days. And you never who believe who was. Well, first of all, I forget the guy's name, but he was the bad guy in Titanic. He has a weird name, but he
Billy
came
Zane.
in. Yeah, yeah, he was in the restaurant.
Zane.
Yes, yesterday.
Really? Wow. Man, Billy Zane. I remember that guy. He
And
He's like a B movie superstar, isn't he?
he's a little he's not quite the Bruce
That's
Campbell
what
level.
Huntsville would get. The Huntsville would get a B or C level superstar, right? Yeah, absolutely.
no, Chase, I'm not done yet. William Shatner is going to be there tonight, so
No, really?
pretty
The
pretty
Shatner?
big deal. Pretty big deal, yeah.
That is a
Shatner,
big deal.
Shatner's
Wow.
special. He's iconic, man. He had an iconic role, and then he's done some. He's just been in like he's always been in a commercial. There's always a Shatner commercial coming on that
Jason,
reminds me that he's still alive. Yeah,
I want you to guess how old William Shatner is. I'm gonna look this up right
he's
now.
fucking old. I'm gonna go ahead and say 82.
Let's take William
What
Shatner.
do you think, Austin?
I think he's like like late 80s, probably like 87.
Okay, let's take a look. William Shatner's age, 94 years old.
Jesus Christ, that's incredible.
He's still he looks good, man. He's got that Hollywood the secret DNA keep you young for a long
Do,
time,
do,
you
do,
know.
do you guys think it'll get like that with the technology? Like people in their 90s will look like they're in their 50s and then they'll just die.
There is this billionaire. I can't remember his name, but he's obsessed with like staying young. He's one of those guys who really does dream of like living forever. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
all he does is the youth stuff. And he's in his he looks like a video game character. Have you ever heard of like the uncanny valley? You know, like where they try to make something look human, but it actually ends up looking less human because it's in between human and robot. That's what he kind of looks like now. Like somebody made of plastic,
And
you
nobody
know?
tells
Like
him, right? Everyone's just nobody says you kind of looking like a freak. They all just kind of
uh I don't know. Who's gonna do that to a
I
billionaire?
would.
I
I'd be
mean,
like, you don't look normal, bro. Like you look like, you've been enhanced. Yeah.
but then he cuts off your funding and he says, "You know what? I'm done with you." And then you're back to Hawaii, you know? I
What a,
don't think that's how it works, you know?
what about the dream of living forever? What do you guys think of that? Is that something you would want?
Go ahead, Austin.
Uh, that reminds me, I was reading this book called On the Verge of Nothing by Gary J. Shipling. And in it, he's describing a novel in which people do live forever, but a high number of people decide to commit suicide. It's called, well, I'll just read it real fast. Quote, in his novel, Guernica Knight, Barry in Malmsburg, imagines our future as one of isolated communities in which suicide, the final trip, is offered to all under 25. Due to the uptake rate being exceedingly high, the main character, Sid, is sent to investigate the case of one such individual, Jag, who has expressed his intention to die, saying how he is disgusted with his life and is disgusted with all of life as he knows it, and that he cannot put up with it any longer. Sid attempts to discover the reasons behind these high rates of suicide, but by the end of the book comes only the conclusion that despite all life's stale dreams and luxuries, including a technological advancement that facilitates instantaneous transport to anywhere on the globe, there is, quote, no reason to stay, but there's none to go either, that life at whatever level is perversely interesting, and that he is therefore doomed to live, unquote. Any thoughts there?
I think I'm reminded of those. You ever heard of the real suicide places, like in Europe, where you
Japanese
can medically
forest. Oh, yeah, yeah,
not that,
yeah. Yeah.
and it's just like terminally ill people. It's like mentally ill people, like severely depressed people, can go in there and they can end it. You know, in the most peaceful way imaginable. You know, it's super controversial, but
Why is that
that
controversial? Why would that be
I
controversial?
think it's one thing if you're terminally ill, like if you've got some horrific disease that's going to kill you over 10 years slowly and painfully, but to be mentally like to be so depressed. I mean, so many people are suicidal after a breakup, You know what I mean? Like, so I think that there's this idea of, okay, mental health. To what extent is it the same thing as a terminal illness? You know what I mean? And I can see the back and forth on that. It definitely worries people because they think, like Futurama, you remember the suicide booths? You
Yeah,
know,
a
like
great idea. Yeah.
maybe that's the future, you know? And people are like, okay, fuck them. You don't want to live, don't. Who cares? You know?
What do you think of this concept? Euthanasia for people in jail, like life sentencers, they can opt out.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, absolutely.
So there's
Otherwise, it's
no
slavery.
issues with. Do you think there'd be a moral qualm with that, or people would agree?
Yeah, people would have a moral qualm, but
But
I
more
don't
would
see it.
agree, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's less.
Yep,
Yeah, for
yep.
sure.
Austin, I think you got some like noise in the background. Chase, you picking that up, man? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah. That was a little rough, whatever that was. But yeah, no, that I think that's very reasonable because ultimately, I think that there has to be some agency that you allow. I think it's actually a moral thing to give an individual agency because the real torture is when you have a slave, right? Where you're like, okay,
Right.
you're
Yep.
here for life. You do what we tell you. You pee when we tell you. You go outside when you tell you and you don't have a single choice, at least you can have the choice of, over your own life. And to me, that is a degree of freedom that we can permit every human being.
Always appreciated that about the Japanese culture, how it was implemented into it. It was a thing of honor. And this is not me glorifying but I was like, I like that it was an option. Because I'm not saying that someone's depressed or because you're an addict. I'm like, if you've tried and this brain is just broken, if you're in constant pain every day and you're going to live another 50 years, why shouldn't you be allocated at least the option? You should have an option. You should be able to do it peacefully. I love that. It's better than taking things into your own hands. That's what most people do.
Yeah. One of my favorite writers, David Foster Wallace, talks about suicide, and he ultimately did take his own life. But he talks about it in the terms of like you're in a building on fire, and you're stuck between the flames and the jump, right? When the suffering of life
Hmm.
is so intense that it outweighs the fear of death, and this is like Arthur Schopenhauer too. A person will put it into their life, and because I think most people want to live, and I think even people that commit suicide ultimately would have liked to go on living if only they could live well. It's I think very few people hunger after complete oblivion. That seems a bit odd.
Austin, that might have been the greatest explanation you've ever given. Most clear cut, brother. That analogy of, look, you're gonna burn to death or you're gonna jump and get killed from the jump. It's like it's one or the other. It's like, yeah, I think that's exactly where suicide is for people. They would prefer to live, but life just hasn't worked out that way, and they're done. They're tired.
It is interesting. I had to read this book just recently. There's this book that's going all around the public sphere called Abundance by Ezra Klein. Everybody's been talking about it because it's a kind of a hate letter to Democrats and Republicans, but it's all about like the horrible nature of the bureaucratic system, right? But he goes into homelessness, particularly in California, right? And he's like, okay, so we're going to look at states that got low homelessness, states that have, you know, high homelessness. So, what do you think the number one cause of homelessness is? Just if you had to guess, what do you think it is in terms of they've studied this shit. Like, what do you think the number one thing that causes homelessness is?
Can you say mental illness? Is that too broad?
Yeah, they looked into mental illness. That's not it.
Finances.
Being too broke to afford a house. Does that
Yeah.
count?
Yeah.
That's a correlation to it, but that's not the big reason they said.
Hang on.
Simply put, it's
Hang on. What would it be? Let me think real quick. It's not mental health is correlated, money's correlated, but that's not the main factor.
not the mental health. The money is correlated, but it's to one particular aspect of the money.
Accessibility? Like what do you mean? What is it? Fuck it, tell us.
Housing, the
Hmm.
accessibility of housing, right?
Oh,
And
sure.
that's not just like your ability to own a house; it's the ability to rent an affordable place, you know. And like they were like, yeah, we started looking at like side by side, and there was one factor we could have. You know why there's so much housing issue. There's so many homeless people in San Francisco and LA because the average apartment in a place like San Francisco's 3 grand a month for like one bedroom. in a shitty little hole in the wall. You know what I mean? And then you look at a place like New York, it's the same. DC, the same, you know? And basically, the lower that cost of living goes, the better off the homelessness gets. It's as simple as that, you know? And yeah, I thought about that for a long time. I was like, fuck, people just can't afford to live well. They can't afford to have shelter. And then you add to that food. It's just, of course, people choose suicide, man. The flames are right there. You know, you can't bat it out with some dollar bills.
Yeah. No, I totally see it. I mean, that's the truth of Huntsville. When it was gentrified and we have a lot of very wealthy people coming in working for defense contractors, you have the FBI, Space Force, a lot of really well-paying jobs and a huge influx of people. The price of apartments are outrageous. I mean, uh, Edwin lived in a really not good neighborhood and was paying close to $1,000. If you want to live in a somewhat decent area of Huntsville, you're paying, let's say, $900 to $1,000 for a studio apartment. And it's probably not even going to be that great of an area either. And then you have utilities on top of that, and the rate of pay is not going up substantially, and certainly not like there's certainly not catching up with the price of apartments and so forth. So your wages have stagnated, and in Huntsville in particular, and the cost of living has gone up substantially, and that includes the cost of food and like other necessities as well. So
What's
it's
the minimum
horrible, man.
wage? What's the minimum
Oh,
wage?
I want to say like
750?
yeah, you're probably right. I was gonna say like 850, but what like so low that you could never possibly live off of that. I mean, you couldn't afford to
Well,
live
So
anywhere.
what?
750, 40 hours a week, that's 300 a
That's not
week.
minimum
As
wage. That's minimum wage is much higher. I have to say it's much. You might want to Google that, but I think it's a lot higher.
it's different in each state. Let's see. Alabama minimum wage. Go ahead, Chase. Were you gonna say anything?
Well, I was just going to say the contrast because you've stated it so many times before that China, you've never seen a homeless person,
Never.
right?
Never.
How is that
Yeah.
possible? Where do they,
It's
is there housing for
Chase.
people that don't make
Chase.
it?
I looked it up. In Alabama, the minimum wage is $7.25. So it's even cheaper. So 300, that's 4 weeks. So you're making like 1,200 a month. And your rents, and then that's not even with taxes, you know, and then you add rent to that. And then who can afford a car on that shit? Who can get gasoline? Who could do anything? Like, Jesus Christ, I'm surprised there's not a line of people waiting to go to Holland so they can kill themselves or go into a forest in Japan just so they can off themselves. Good God. That is unbelievable.
What?
I'm surprised there's not riots in the streets.
How does China do it? How does China not have one?
They keep wages low and they artificially inflate prices, you know.
Well, housing though.
So for housing is an issue. That is an issue. But let me give you an example. The food is the big one, right? Like, so like you can always buy a kilo of rice, like a big bag of rice for a buck, you know. Vegetables, always super cheap. Like I go to the store every day, get the fresh vegetables. It's like, I don't know, $4 for a whole bunch of vegetables, shit like that, you know. And the other thing is you don't need a car because the infrastructure is so good. You know, like you can get any part of Beijing for $1. $1 any part of Beijing. Just bam, you're there on the subway or the bus or whatever. You know, housing is an issue though. That's something that's getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and they're gonna have to deal with that somehow.
Well, they've taken care of the other two. It's like, can I get to work and can I eat? That's if you can have two out of those three, you're probably not going to off yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a problem with suicides. Like my school, for example, in the 5 years I've been working there, we've had 5 kids kill themselves. You know,
One a year. Any of your students?
one. Yeah.
Really?
The very first year I was there,
Did it surprise you or you're like, yeah, it doesn't surprise
she never said a word, like never raised her hand or anything like that. I had zero relationship with her. She jumped off the building.
me? That's how they do it over
Jumped
there.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It really fucked up the kids, though. I remember that. Like, the kids were devastated.
So,
Like, I remember
to
totally.
my PhD in Thailand was on like the 16th. It was something absurd. They built this school in like a small, tall building. It's like the 16th,
Mhm.
18th floor. And this Thai teacher one day just got off on a ranch, like, oh, the girl had jumped out. And I'm like, from here? She says, yeah. She jumped out from here and landed on the concrete. It was a pancake. It spread everywhere. Like it got on
Ooh.
kids. I was like, oh
Ah.
my God. Like she was traumatized. Can you imagine falling 16 stories on concrete? There'd be nothing
I mean,
left. Nothing
if
left.
you get to determine your way to go, wouldn't you want to have it like do it quietly, comfortably, like
So,
like
what
you
do you think
decide
the
on your own.
suicide's crazy high in Hawaii? What do you think the number one means for a male in Hawaii that's going to off himself? What did they do?
God,
They probably hang themselves, right? They don't like
hanging
cut
too awful.
themselves and swim into the ocean for sharks. That'd
What?
be.
Why would you guess hanging?
It just seems like something accessible, I guess. Or like, can you easily attain like guns in Hawaii?
Well, they hang themselves. That always shocked me, but you were 100% correct. And I was like, God,
Oh, I am surprised by that.
that's a
Yeah.
brutal death to me. Like it's
Yeah.
that's like agony.
Slow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
slow. That's how they all attempted. Not all, but the majority that I've had that attempted or did it and heard from was like hanging. Interesting. Good
Also, what do
guess,
you like? There's a
Austin.
lot of there's
Good
a lot of fat dudes in Hawaii. Like, what's gonna hold up your weight? Like what are you gonna do it on? You can't do like a fan. You'd break the fan, or like I don't know, like what do you
Well,
do it from a tree, coconut
I
tree or something?
I just want to say I had to do an assessment once on someone that slit their wrist and walked into the ocean. Like that's how they wanted to go. Like, let the
Yeah, you want to get
sharks
yeah.
come and eat me. It was a brutal interview because I did not let up. I was like, oh, I'm over that now. I'm like, dude, no, you went out. You wanted to go out the most violent. Like, what is going on? What is wrong? Like that is, if you're going to go out in a violent way, I have to think that something is unbelievably fucked up in your life. Like
Yeah.
I can get wanting to kill yourself, but like getting eaten alive by a shark, nobody wants to go out like that, bro. Nobody.
Maybe the most brutal audio. There's two audios in my mind that are really awful. One of them is, and I still remember this because it was like during the war on terror, like back in the beginning of Afghanistan, like 2002 and stuff like that. And I remember there was a news radio guy, right? Mom was listening early in the morning, and he played the audio of a journalist getting beheaded by Al Qaeda, and you could hear like the vocal cords getting ripped through. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, I'll never forget the scream, But the other one was Grizzly Man.
Yeah.
Did you hear the audio when
That,
he's
well,
getting eaten?
it's mixed. They say it's fake, and other people are like, no, that's legit.
Oh,
That's the one. That is
oh my God.
brutal,
Oh,
brutal.
that is, there could not be a worse death. There could not be a worse death. Like, that is a slow, agonizing, like just bit by bit painful. Just eating alive, you're out
He's
of your
screaming
goddamn
that
mind.
too. He's eating me. He's eating me, and then he's screaming. It's oh my. Have you heard that, Austin? Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
You're
I
gonna
mean,
listen
I
to it
know.
after this podcast, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to.
You're
I
lying. I couldn't resist. When I heard it the first time, I was like, I don't want to listen to that. Then I find myself Googling it in 5 minutes later and I listened to it. I couldn't help it. I had to.
Ugh.
Yeah, I I've been like listening to some pretty morbid literature through Audible. I've been listening to a book called Eyewitness Auschwitz, and it was a guy in Auschwitz picked to be a Gruben commando, which is basically you clean the bodies up after they've been gassed and you burn them. And this guy survived, and obviously he's writing the book, but gives like a grotesque account of all the ways in which they just like brutally murdered people. And something I found very interesting is that there's rumors what the Germans were doing, but very few people actually believed it. The Germans were thought to be extremely intelligent, rarefied people. They gave birth to like very profound philosophy, like moral philosophy, like Immanuel Kant and Hegel, and they were known for being technologically advanced and morally advanced. So it was really hard for people to believe. But word did get out. So when people showed up to Auschwitz, they were very edgy. And he was there when they first started gassing people, and when they showed up, they the first batch of people, they were beating them and telling them to take their clothes off, and that was a verification of the fact that they were going to be gassed. There was no doubt in their mind there, and what it caused was absolute chaos. People were revolting. People, they reached out. They tried to kill the guards because they knew they were in a position of no hope. And in they call it the killing ground. You never put your enemy on the ground in which they know they either have to fight or die, because that's when people fight the hardest, and they will never give up, obviously.
Sure.
So what they started doing is they were very kind to these people, and they created a complete fabricated reality for them, including fake signs and like, hey, after you take your shower and then you're delicing, you're gonna sign up here and you're gonna stand in this line. So they create this little fantasy for them, and I think that was like one of the most hard things in the book is the amount, like the degree of deception they went through to trick these people to walk willingly to their own deaths and just like lying to their face all the way until they slam those doors shut. Man, it's a grueling book. I mean, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, it's worth a read. But
I'm not.
it's horrifying. You know, it's
Yeah.
horrifying. Yeah.
Austin, have do you really think that like the just because the Germans have this, this civilized society and this intelligent sort of trait, that makes them somehow more moral, you know?
No, not necessarily. You know, I believe with Kant that there's really the only true good is a goodwill, and everything else, strength, intelligence, can be used improperly. And obviously, an intelligent, malevolent person is much more dangerous than a stupid and malevolent person.
Yeah,
And the Germans were very smart, evil people. Well, the politics was evil.
I got to be honest. The the most evil people I've dealt with in my life were intelligent. Were very intelligent people. And I think I can say that some of the best people I've known in terms of their morality and goodness were some of the simplest people. Maybe it's the Forrest Gump phenomenon. I don't know, but that just happens to be my experience with all of that.
Yeah, I'm listening, continue to listen to that book about evil, and it there's a lot of different brain regions, and your empathy can be destroyed through brain trauma or a lot of different means, drug abuse. But your higher cognitive faculties can still be intact. So you might have a person that can think well, but the part of their brain that deals with compassion, morality, and so forth is absolutely completely destroyed or was never developed because of genetics or upbringing.
Did
So
you,
yeah,
Okay.
can I just say, did you say that empathy can be destroyed by brain trauma?
yeah. So that was interesting thing the dude said. There's a triad of things that predict violent behavior, and one of which is brain trauma or severe head injuries in which there's a loss of consciousness. It's very common for serial killers to have that in their biographies.
Can
I've
I?
heard that about the loss of conscience. That's the biggest one. If you actually lose consciousness. Yeah.
So you got the psychopath where it's just like there's just genetic malmutation where there's no empathy, and then sociopath like Dexter in the series where there's something that happens, a trauma, and therefore everything gets turned off, like the empathy is gone. I had one client in the rehab a long time ago, and she had witnessed, beautiful girl. She had witnessed her brother get shot and killed right in front of her, like a drug deal gone bad or something. And we were looking for the emotion, and there was a feeling like I felt something. And instead of connecting with like pain, she connected with anger. Like he fucking. But I could see how I was like, oh, like that's how she's protecting herself. Like the brain turned off the empathy and it just went to anger. And I thought she was numb to everything. And it was because of that trauma, in my opinion. So yeah, that's the cope. You learn to turn it off. Brain trauma, and now you're technically a sociopath.
So, I'm not a psychologist and I have no vow of confidence. I'm curious. I'd like to share with you guys a case of a student who I think might be evil, and I'm curious what you might think of it. Yeah,
Evil
is that cool?
Knievel, like the stuntman, or truly evil?
Truly evil, But just so you know, I like him. I like this kid, and he likes Christian,
He is
but
evil. He wants to kill us all, but I kind of like him. He's kind of a cool kid.
yeah.
Yeah.
So first things first, he has an obsession with Holocaust denial, an obsession with it. Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
interested in that too. It's fascinating.
he goes deep into the Internet Archive. Do you ever been on the Internet Archive, all the weird photos and stuff like
No.
he's got deep into that shit. He's like showing me documents from the Red Cross saying, see, it was only actually like a couple thousand that died, like these millions is crazy. And like he goes deep
Oh.
into it and all that. But I feel like it's my responsibility. I really, really try never to judge students. And I'm like, okay, let's make a history project out of this. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to see, let's look at both sides of the evidence. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to find this evidence and see if it lines up with historians who disagree with it, And I mean, I won't lie. I think he gets pretty shattered when you do that, but it was an interesting engagement. But anyways, this week I had one-on-one time with him because all the other kids were gone on a field trip, but he stayed behind. And I started talking to him. And check this out. He was from Australia, came over to China later, right? He had this moment where one of his friends got beat up by a Samoan, who are apparently Samoans and Aboriginals are like the black people of China. I mean, of Australia. You know what I mean? Like they're the minorities, but they're also kind of known as the bad kids who get in trouble in school and all that. They got all the stereotypes associated with them.
Wow.
So the Samoan guy beats up his friend, and him and the other Chinese kids get together and they plan for weeks and weeks. They cornered him, and when he was alone in an alley, they got bats and they beat the shit out of him, broke both his legs and both of his arms. Yeah. Kid goes into the hospital. And after that, the police came. None of the Chinese would rat on each other, you know? So they got away with it. You know what I mean? And he was like, that was the most important moment of my life. I was like, yeah. He's like, yes, because I learned that you have to always plan carefully and you never betray the trust of people. I was like, damn, this kid is intense, man.
Why is
He
that
fucking,
evil? What's evil about that?
I don't know, man. The Holocaust denial thing's weird, but it's difficult to. Could you ever break someone's legs?
Yes,
Break someone's legs?
if I had to.
Never, never. I don't have it in me. I couldn't do it. I could yell at you and scream at you, but
Maybe like a
actually break.
stepfather figure or something. You couldn't do that to that person.
No, no. I want him to go away. I don't want to hurt his body.
No, no.
Yeah.
I think hurting the body could make someone go away. You don't kill them, you break a leg or two. Maybe they probably never come back. This is a very select people, though. Yeah.
No, what about this, Dean? A child molester, serial child molester, goes to prison, gets brutally violated. His legs are broken. Do you feel bad for that guy?
Well, to what extent is it a choice? You know what I mean? I remember I read a Stephen King short story once, and it was about a pedophile. And like, it was this guy who was just, he was trying so hard he knew it was wrong what he was doing, but he couldn't help the sexual, just like, can you help being gay? Like there's one of these things where, like, there was an interesting thing that came up the other day with this virtual, like, they've gotten really, really good at this virtual reality porn and like making AI porn and stuff. And
Yeah.
there was this idea of like, well, what if we did AI kitty porn, you know? And it sounds totally horrible and awful, but what if it could sate these people who are broken, who would otherwise do something terrible, Because can you, other than castration, is there anything you can do to help that sort of urge,
These are
I
kind
don't know.
of conversations I like having. What about AI kitty porn for the pedophiles? Could we save them? Actually, well, we're not. What are we doing? We're helping them, I guess, release, right? They're doing their little release. And the idea is if they release with their porn, they won't do it in real life.
The
Is that it?
lesser of two evils. You know what
Sure.
I mean? Like, I mean,
Sure.
if you can stay, if that one kitty porn AI saves some guy from visiting a playground and violating a little girl, or saves a Catholic priest from touching an altar boy, then God help him. I mean, at least that's something. Because I don't think we've found the pill that cures pedophilia.
Austin, did you ever see the man holding the sign out in front of the Catholic church after you go over the hill? You know that Catholic church? You go over the hill into downtown, or from Jones Valley, you go over the hill. You go down the hill. It's right next to Trinity, the Catholic church. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. What about it?
There was a guy out there. He was always standing with a sign, and I was molested by the priest here. He held his sign.
Oh, really?
I was in the back of your mom's car. I don't remember if she was driving, and we just got stuck in traffic. And I remember I could stare directly into his eyes. Now, it must have been 14, 13. I saw psychological chase. He was broken. I believed him. And it was like raining, misty, and there was nothing on his face. I was molested at the church here. And the parents are picking up their kids.
Oh God!
And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God!
man, I believe him. I believe him. He was broken. I was like, Sylvia, please drive, please. So,
That shit gets so dark. I saw a documentary on that one time. I think it was called Spotlight, and it was all about just it. Chase, you have no idea how deep it
I don't
went.
want to.
Like
I don't
we're
want
not.
to know.
Oh my god, just all over the world. All over, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of cases, and all of them just shut the fuck up.
So at
Nothing's
the
wrong.
drug rehab, and you probably knew one or two of them. I won't say them by name, but your second job when you worked at the other rehab with me, there's one or two of my clients. They they were good. They were they were just broken, and they were male, and they had been raped as kids, and
Uh,
it fucked them. There was no getting over it. It broke them in every single way. Relationships, insecurities. I was like, damn, man, I'm glad that shit
yeah.
didn't happen to me. Fuck.
Therefore, we need AI kitty porn.
Right.
Let's do this,
I'll label
people.
the video. We support AI kitty porn. That'll be the title.
There we
Hopefully it
go.
gets a lot
Yeah.
of views.
Austin, I need your approval on this. Yeah.
I don't know. We'd have to have a scientific study. But in Florida, if you get caught molesting somebody under the age of 13 or 14, they castrate you, you know.
Really?
And yeah,
What?
and
Really?
ultimately I think
Pills?
I think they might chemically do it. I think if you actually assault somebody, they might do it uh like permanently. But I think that, dude, you're saving that person from themselves, man. If you really have that kind of an issue, you need to your testosterone needs to be cut off, dude. You can never be let back in public
Well,
after doing something like that.
So,
but again, it's not their fault. You know what I mean? Like they just are that way. You know?
at one of the few psychological conferences I went to, this topic came up, and they asked who in the room, and probably was 50 or 60 therapists and psychologists there, who would counsel to help a pedophile. Four or five people, including me, raised their hands out of 50 or 60. It's just, even with the therapists who are supposed to be empathetic, they're like, fuck these people. Like, they don't
Yeah.
deserve help.
It's
So,
the ultimate like taboo. I think
yes.
every society. It didn't used to be that way. Like in Greece, they believed there was something in the semen that educated kids, so it was important to fuck them,
That they,
you know?
oh, right, right.
Yeah.
Wise.
Yeah.
Yes, very. Well, Austin is the first one to tell us that Jesus was he got nutrients from young men, which,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
led to his
Yeah.
spiritual enlightenment.
That
Yeah.
on our was that on our Easter episode? Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a great Eastern sermon. I'm going to talk about the resurrection, but I'm going to go a little off topic today. Back to
Like, can you
Calvary.
imagine the minister? He comes up to the pulpit and stuff like that, and he says, "Peace be with you, and also be with you." And today, let's talk about kitty cum
Kitty
and
come.
Jesus taking that
Mm.
kitty cum. Yes, in many ways, kitty cum is for you and for God
Hey,
together.
another taboo topic. I guess it's in the same realm, but what do you guys think of cannibalism?
I was listening to a book the other day about mad. It was a book about
This kid's every topic I bring up. Actually, I was just reading a book on this yesterday.
about viruses, right? So it was first recognized in sheep. It was they call it like a shaking disease. They weren't really sure what it was, but it was spongiform encephalitis. So what happened was the sheep were ground up and used as feed for cows, and the cows developed what was called mad cow disease, right? Uh, it's There's another situation. I think it's in Papua New Guinea, but to show respect to their fallen or dead ancestor, they would eat the brains and eat the nervous system of their, and they would get something called kuru. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a shaking disease, and it's a form of spongiform encephalitis. It's a prion disease that causes basically dementia, progressive dementia, and it's almost identical to mad cow disease. But uh, because of that, there's because of prion diseases that associated with cannibalism, I think on a pragmatic level, you could say that it's very dangerous. But then you have things like shipwrecks, the famous shipwreck that Moby Dick was based on. Forget the name of it. They ate each other. They didn't get the disease, but it severely mentally fucked these people up. They were not well afterwards. What's your perspective? I mean, what do you mean? What about cannibalism? Is it good? Is it bad? Should it be practiced?
They always pitch it like this is like awful and no one would ever do this. And first I was like, first off, if I crash in the Andes and you're dead, Austin, I'm gonna fucking eat you to stay alive. It's just I don't dream about it, but if I'm gonna stay
Rafe
alive,
wants to try, man. He's you've talked about this
if
before.
it
He
was
wants
on the
to try.
buffet and I was walking by, but yeah, give me a piece of that. I want to see what it tastes like. Sure, I want to taste it. And what if, Austin, they're telling you all these horrible diseases they give you? What if they give you superpowers? I saw a movie once where these guys ate and they became immortal. They were fighting to the death and they keep eating more people. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
Yeah.
So no, I just if I was in a survival situation, I'd totally eat a person, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. I wouldn't kill them, but if they died first or froze to death, sure, why not?
I
Yeah.
remember somebody, I can't remember where I heard this, but they went into they were talking about the dietary laws of like Jews and Muslims, no pigs, you know what I mean? And they were like, what's it? And there was this theory that it was I think it's called trypanosis. There's some kind of disease associated with pigs if it's not cooked right, you know? But they found out that that only happens in cold climates. And these are all Middle Eastern religions, you know? So there's a new theory saying that no, actually, what it is these are anti-cannibalism laws, right? Because they say that mankind, long pig, as we're called, yeah, it tastes just like pork when you eat them, you know? And so these laws were to kind of root out cannibalism, actually, you know, because it was so, as Austin just said, so incredibly dangerous to the health of society, you know? So they incorporated them into the religion thousands and thousands of years ago, you know?
Dean shared this with me really a year or two ago, and you know what my
Did I?
response was? I started eating pig. I don't know why. So everything I get now, I order with pig, and I do. I'm like, I wonder if this tastes like people.
Let me tell you something, man. In China, China is all about pork. And dude,
Asians love pork. They love pork.
pork is fucking fantastic.
Yes,
I've had so many amazing pork dishes here. Like just I was ignoring pork my whole life. We were only eating
me too.
chicken.
Pork's
Oh,
great,
yeah.
and pigs are a smart animal, smarter than dogs, smarter than chickens, smarter than fish.
Yeah, there was this one book I read a long time. It was called like The Children of Cain, The Children of. It was about like DNA, like 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 genetically engineered humans. And what happened is eventually, like, he makes a DNA virus that kills all humans, and he replaces them with his new perfect species. But they had these pigs that they would grow human organs in, so that they could harvest them and give them to people. You know, because pigs and humans are so similar. You know, and what happened is the pigs like escaped, and they like became like kind of sentient pig creatures, and they were capable of setting up traps, and
Well,
like
Animal
start to
Farm all over again, man. Yeah.
it was intense, man. I remember those pigs. They were scary because they were intelligent. They were thinking. They were coordinated. You know.
It's when I got relocated to Lubbock for a year. They forced us to read Animal Farm in school. Loved that book. Loved it. Such a great book. I was a fan of the pigs the whole time. It's like I hope they take over. I hope they kill the farmer. I hope they win now. And they did. It was fantastic. Great read.
Started walking on their hind legs, man.
They did. They did.
Yeah.
They were gambling with men. Yep.
Man, Orwell, what do you have? He had that like chronic respiratory disease, killed a lot of people while he was writing 1984. Say it again, dude.
Tuberculosis? Is that it?
Tuberculosis, yeah. They were interviewing him, and this is towards the end of his life. And they, I think this might have been out of 1984, but they asked it, like, what does the future look like? He said it looked like a boot stomping on a human neck forever. And they asked him what the like the meaning was behind that, and he said, "Don't let it happen." So I'm a huge fan of Orwell. It's kind of funny because a lot of people think he was in the Illuminati, and they think 1984 was not a legitimate warning. They think it was something that the Illuminati have to do called revelation of the method. Have you heard of this?
Oh.
The Illuminati have to tell you what they're doing to absolve themselves karmically.
Oh, so they do it through fiction?
They do a lot through a lot of different ways, but basically, the idea is like Aldous Huxley and Brave New World or
That's it.
1984, is that they have to tell you what they're doing. They have to tell you what they're doing.
What did you
But
guys prefer? Just curious out of those two books. They were kind of forced. We all had to read those. Was there a favorite? You found them indifferent? Same
I thought
message.
Huxley I thought Huxley had a much cooler idea, but I think Orwell's the better writer. You know.
Oh.
yeah, I agree. I enjoyed 1984 as a novel substantially more, but I think it's going to be if it's like a hyper advanced tyranny. It's going to be a mixture, and ultimately, it's going to be people are going to be conditioned to enjoy their servitude, like Huxley talks about.
Yeah, yeah, you guys nailed it. 1984 was funner to read. Brave New World is probably more spot on. Yeah.
Orwell's interesting, man. He was in the Spanish Civil War, like in 1936. Like he was there in the middle. Dude, the Spanish Civil War is one of the most fucked up things ever. People should talk about it way more because it's like pre-World War II. It's pre-Cold War too, but it's anarchists and communists and fascists and democracies and all the Europeans and the American. Everybody's fighting there. It's the first time there's ever civilian bombings and there's like just chaos everywhere. And he was right smack in the middle of it, like right smack in the middle of that just slop of humanity. It's no wonder he was like, we're fucked. We are completely fucked. There's no way we can ever survive this century. Somehow we did, you know. I was YouTube sucked something up into the algorithm last night. I always like watch a few videos before collapsing in bed. And Austin Powers came up. Yeah, you remember that old movie, Austin Powers, the Mike Myers one? And it was that very first scene where he wakes up from being frozen. And he's like, we're here with Russian intelligence. And he's like, finally, those capitalist pigs will pay for their crimes. Hey, comrades, hey, hey. And they're like, well, we won the Cold War. Oh, yay, capitalism, you know? I always like I was like, shit, that must have been what it was like, man. You probably just you had no idea. You're like, it's either going to be nuclear war, communist revolution, or capitalist corruption everywhere. It must have felt like dystopia was around the corner at every possible moment. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. I was listening to a book the other day
Oh, okay,
called
yes, another
called Napoleon's Hemorrhoids,
okay.
and it's
I've heard of this
basically
book. I've heard of this book because Andrew Roberts talks about it in his Napoleon book. I know this book. Yeah.
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 So it's an excellent history book, and it's like a huge variety of very short vignettes, basically about how history happened, and it could have easily happened otherwise, like very close calls, like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Like there's an assassination attempt. He got away scot free, and then
Yep. Failed.
sometime later, the driver took a wrong turn, and the dude that was another dude that wanted to assassinate him was having coffee and just walked up to him and shot him, kicking off World War One. Oh yeah, but yeah, apparently Marx had a skin condition that explained his psychology and would have explained his habits of staying indoors and his habits of being very isolated and class conscious, a kind of a sensitivity from the skin condition. But he's like, if he hadn't have had this condition, he probably wouldn't have done what he did. And that's basically the entire book. Like if Napoleon didn't have hemorrhoids, he would have started the Battle of Waterloo 4 or 5 hours earlier, and probably and very likely could have won the war, because he quoted the other guy and he said it was the hardest fight he's ever done. He was very on the edge of losing it. So it's a very fun book if you're in the history. I'm sure you would enjoy it, Dean.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember hearing about it because from the Andrew Roberts book where he wrote like the big Napoleon book. But yeah, there's a lot of little things like that happen throughout history. Like there's this moment where Lenin almost didn't get on a train that went to Moscow, and if he had stayed, Lenin he probably would have been murdered. And there probably without Lenin would not have been any communist revolution. And can you just imagine like all of the 20th century without like Bolshevism, without the USSR, with like it's just impossible to imagine, you know. But it was just this one train that he happened to make, you know, and there it is, an entirely new history,
So
you know.
Napoleon had hemorrhoids? Because I had those a long time ago, and it does. It's just you're angry at everybody. You can't sit down. You need a special like O thing to sit on. Like it's horrible. You're angry at life. And I could totally see if you have a skin condition as well. You're angry at life. You can't go outside. Let's write about the class system and a revolution. And that all sounds kind of good.
There was a book a long time ago. I read it in grad school called Young Man Luther, and it was a psychological analysis of Luther. You know,
Luther, Martin Luther?
Martin Luther, and it was completely fascinating. Yeah, because it just talked about like his abuse as a monk. Like he was just fucking. He had this prior who was just a dick and treated him like shit. and like made him like he was like you can't fucking pray at the with the rest of us. You got to go clean the toilets and stuff like that. And he said like all of this hate was just being it got funneled into this revolution. And it was interesting because he goes into great because Luther wrote a lot, and he goes into great detail about his life and stuff like that. And he fucking hated that guy, and he hated the Jews too. He was a big anti-Jewish guy too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it
Hmm.
happened.
Did the friar haircut back then is where they have the bald spot, but like the ring around it?
Yep.
Yep. It's a unique little, maybe someone should bring that back. I don't know.
It's like the brain. You got to have the closer connection to God. He's got to get through there. The
What
hair.
what is that? That's how you know it's a Christian monk. It's like, oh, he's got that bald spot back there in the ring. Yeah.
In Asia, they said just shave it all. They
Well,
said just
let's not think about this too much. Just cut your fucking hair off. I like that. Just cut it
yeah.
off. Yeah.
They're pretty hairless, anyways. You know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
guys ask you a psychological question because I've having to deal with the personality that's out here lately. Imagine an individual that is solely focused on one thing. And like everything else gets thrown to the wayside. Everything else falls apart. But
One thing changes every few months. Yeah.
this one task that you go after, you become the best at it. But everything else falls apart around you. Have you ever met a personality like this? Like it's interesting to see they give no attention to anything else except the goal. Only the goal.
I've never seen it personally.
Really? You've never ran into this where they're just hyper focus and fixation, and that's all they see?
I mean, except for drug addicts,
Right,
they
that'd
tend
be
to
a
be
perfect
hyper
example. Yeah,
focused.
like gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't really think of anybody outside of that person. You know, I I I've never met that type of person personally. I've heard about them, but no, I never really become friends with them.
Yeah, it's all that matters, and they're willing to sacrifice almost anything on the side. I'm not built that way, but I could understand if something meant that much to you. Sure, sure.
Mm.
It's been interesting conversations. Yeah, it's hard to connect with people like that unless you talk about the one thing they're into.
Yeah.
What's that one thing for you, Chase?
In all honesty, brother, if I never have another serious conversation in my life, except on this podcast, I would be happy. Like freedom, and just have a good time. That's all I want to do, man.
Must be having serious conversations all the time. Is that what's happening? Like it's all been serious conversations this whole
That's-
time.
When you have a field of psychology, all the conversations, the majority of the conversations you have are serious. Yeah. So your
The
dream
other
is
day,
is not serious. Yeah.
the other day I was hanging out with teachers, like other teachers, like when we were just going doing things, and just there was this fat bitch who just kept talking and talking, and I was like, Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up. But I had a moment where I was like, wait a second, I'm thinking negatively here. I wanted to shut the fuck up, but she was talking such bullshit that I was like, wait a second, I'm grateful for the bullshit. I'm grateful that you're talking about nothing. And I was it totally changed my perspective. I was like, okay, I'd rather talk about this than work, than something serious. At least it's bullshit. And I just kind of swam around in her bullshit for a while, and it was all right. It was
Now,
acceptable.
now, Austin, this is a very much Conrad philosophy to talk about unbelievably petty, shallow things. And I feel like these topics not I don't know, aggravate you, but just kind of put you off. But we need them. That's the only way we survive. Do you push away from these, or do you need them as well on occasion?
No, I mean, yeah, I'm not a huge fan typically, and they don't. I don't know if they really put me off. I understand it. It's just like not part of my temperament to engage with.
Let's see. Let's have a practice one real quick, okay? We talked about hairy earlier. How hairy are the Elrods? I'm curious about this. What's the hairy level, Austin?
Well, they
Are
got
you
different
full on?
dads, so that.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, like how Viking are you, or are you basically a hairless twink? What's going on?
I don't like the question. I don't like
Is
it.
it? Well, you're supposed to play around. This is how you do it. This is the conversations, huh? This
Let me
is how
talk
you get.
about. I like.
Austin, what's the first thing you thought of when you jerked off? for the first time ever? Well, that's an interesting. That's a conversation
It's a
starter.
great question. That should be a first
Yeah.
date question. Yeah. What is
13 years old. Hey, you're hanging out there. You're playing with your wiener. You're not exactly sure what you're doing. What is the first thing that came into your mind? The first image, huh?
That's a great question.
I really
Hmm.
like sparkling water, and I drink it instead of Coke now.
Oh,
It's
Jesus.
not quite as satisfying,
Yeah.
but I like the
Maybe
bubbles.
I think he's been castrated at some point. This guy neglects anything sexual. Dean's talked about his first. I'm trying to think. You know what? My first fight. I remember I was watching porn. I was sneaking downstairs at our parents' house, and there's these two. This blonde, beautiful, and this brunette. And the blonde was a little harder than the brunette, and the brunette was like eating out the blonde, and I just exploded. And I didn't know what happened. I know something came out, and I just know it shot over my head or it hit the ceiling or something like that. But
Wow.
I didn't know. I was confused. I don't remember how old I was, but I
I don't know
was
what's going on,
I
but
was a
you
little
knew that
scared. I was
you knew
scared.
not to tell mom.
I
You
was
knew
scared.
that.
You goddamn right. I was scared. Something happened. What did I just do? Yeah, it was
So this
overwhelming.
is interesting. The other day we were at the mall, and I saw a guy who was just he was perfect.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was it,
I
like,
know that
disturbed
feeling. Yeah,
it
yeah.
disturbed me. My
Oh,
eyes were locked. I became a stalker for a minute. I was like, oh my God, I want to follow you. You know what I mean? And it just it's been years since that's happened. You know what I mean?
they're
But
rare. They're rare.
it
Yeah,
made me realize, like, have you ever been in a situation where you're working with somebody that hot? Like, could you function? Getting back to kitty porn, like if you felt like a pedophile, like Jesus Christ, like you're so turned on, so attractive, could you function?
no.
Could you work side by side? Yeah, it's an
I could
impossibility.
function as long as they were not immediately prominent in the environment. If they were elsewhere, I'd be okay.
What if they were like your boss? You know what
No,
I mean?
it would be a problem. It'd be a
Like they're
massive problem.
dealing with you on a daily basis,
I would be working late often. Yes.
Chase, I need to talk to you about your TPS reports.
Talk to
Like,
me
come
about
into the
anything, anything. Where do you want to
yeah.
talk? Yeah, absolutely.
She dressed a little sexy, like the sexy
Absolutely.
business.
Be hitting the
You know,
gym hard every day. Probably good in a lot of ways. Got in shape, got a little tanner.
I I always wonder. So there's this I have a friend. He's Chinese, but he's just pathetic, like with women.
Hmm,
Like he's the sort of guy who he can't say a word to a woman.
hmm.
You know what I mean? And I just always wonder like how he would react if a woman flirted with him. Like what he would do if he was ever in that situation. I think he might just come in his pants and just be lost in the humiliation of it.
Have you
You
ever
know
heard
what I
that
mean?
song, Jizz in My Pants?
Yeah, jizz in my pants.
It's a
Yeah.
great song. Great. It's a great video too. Very
Yeah.
accurate. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Austin, I noticed you've been quiet. Do you have a book about this that you could maybe share? Yeah.
Also, are you, is it, would you refer it as a low sex drive or your sex drive is normal, but you don't like conversating about
Yeah. How many
Uh,
times a week?
it?
I consider myself normal, but yeah, I think there's more interesting things to talk about.
Oh, poor Oz. I'm sorry, buddy. Okay. All right. All right. We had our fun. I apologize. Yeah.
Now let's talk about Oblivion for a minute. Not
Oh,
really,
the
but
remake? The remaster?
no, no.
Oh.
We could maybe touch on the news.
Hmm.
Epstein's one of Epstein's accusers and was
Oh my
apparently
God. Did you see the tweet? Did you see the tweet
no,
from her?
no.
Oh my God. It's like the most Chase, this is unbelievable. So there's like her name is Jope? What's her name? It's fucking weird. It's like uh fucking
Yeah, you're right. Virginia Giuffre.
she had a tweet, Austin, you can look it up. And like it was she killed herself. She's like one of the living witnesses about Epstein. She had a tweet the day before just saying, I have talked to my physician. I have talked to my family. I have talked to my therapist. I want everyone to know I am 100% not suicidal. Like, just like puts this huge, like, just, I've talked to everyone. I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal. The next day, she's committed suicide, you know? But what? What? Like, and it's just fading away. Nobody cares. Like we'll forget about it in a day. It just doesn't matter. It is truly. Austin, you see that tweet, man? You see what I'm saying?
I didn't see the tweet, the tweet, but I did look at like a CNN YouTube video, a short one, and like
Yeah.
every comment was like she didn't kill herself. There's no way she killed herself. Didn't she
Nobody
drive a
cares. Is
car into a tree?
that how
Is
it
that
happened?
I have to verify, but there was that the guy that Rogan always talks about, same kind of situation. He wrote a very like derogatory article about people high in the military, and he was very paranoid. And and a lot of people theorized that his car was taken over because it was electric and driven into a tree at a
I
very
remember
high
that.
rate of speed. Yeah, so maybe it was a similar situation because I do believe it was a car accident that did it. But yeah, she was trafficked to Prince Andrew, and this is basically the thing that because he did that interview on British television where he talked about how he couldn't sweat, and he basically gave like the worst interview conceivable when you're defending yourself after being accused of being a molester, and it basically ruined his life, you know. So yeah, makes sense.
Dean, why is it
Yeah,
so
she
sh
said
well, why is it so shocking to you? Like, I mean, I get the shock factor, but even the Epstein death, it's like I've always been, we will never know what we really need to know. And it's outrage for a week and then it's gone. That's how it's always going to be.
I'm frustrated that we don't live in a revolutionary age. You know,
Fair.
like I'm frustrated that people don't like we were talking about wages earlier. Why aren't there people marching in the streets of Huntsville? You know, if you can't fucking afford rent, if you can't afford to buy food, why aren't there people just demanding justice? For some reason, it's dead. Like that, whatever spark leads to revolutions, it's just gone. It's not there anymore, man. Like the
Because
last
you,
time there was
what,
ever a real revolution was 1989. And after that, it's over. It just doesn't happen anymore. And I don't understand why,
well, you
you
need the
know?
hype, right? You need the community. You got to build it. No news is going to portray that if it's really
I
an
think it's
issue,
even
right?
deeper than that. I think it's deeper than that. I think what it is there's something like there's been a psychological conditioning amongst the American people to do nothing, right? Sloth is the default mode, and people just have an apathy that doesn't lead to action, you know? And I think
Because
that's by design.
because they prop up ridiculous causes. That's what they give attention to. And it's like nobody supports this shit. Maybe 10% of people support this shit and they act like this is the big issue. And it just kills it head on. It's like, is this what people really think we need to do? Fuck people. Fuck everybody.
What happened with Black Lives Matter should be happening for Epstein. I think this is infinitely more important.
Black,
Yeah. And
what a fucking, if you supported Black Lives Matter, don't ever talk to me. I mean, you're that stupid. From the get-go, it's just like, this is beyond ridiculous. Let's say
yeah,
one
Chase,
people matter more than others. It's just illogical from the get-go. And it turned out they all bought mansions from the money that you supported and sent to them. Who would have thought? Who would have
yeah.
thought?
But I just, why is there no account? Like, I guess that this is just the age we live in. You know what I mean? Just people get away with shit. You know, like, I want to believe that there is a sense of justice that American people believe in, but at the end of the day, we just don't believe in the system. We don't, and everybody like, yeah, this is how it is. You know, I mean, bullshit. This is a democracy. People need to speak up. They need to have action. They need to do things. They need to participate in the system, and they're not. And I'm disappointed. We are the country of a revolution. Fucking forgot about it, man.
Dude,
Not anymore. Remember January 6th? They call those people insurrectionists, even though they were just led into the Capitol. I mean, they're a bunch of, I think, not very intelligent people who are manipulated by FBI plants to do that. But
dude.
regardless, man, I agree, Dean. There was a video going around of a Chinese national talking to some random news agency, but he was like, China's not the issue. Like, yeah, China's made money by dealing with the U.S., but we have put our money into building infrastructure and lifting millions out of poverty. He's like, what have your oligarchs done with all the money that they've made? And he was saying, is that what you're talking about, Dean? Because he was basically saying the same thing. You need a revolution. It's like you've allowed this to happen over 40, 50 years.
Well, no, I think what I'm really talking about is like something psychologically broken in the American people. You know, like I'll give another example. During the civil rights movement, which by the way is totally worth studying, the civil rights movement in America is amazing to study because it's so broken, right? And there's this critical moment. It's after the Birmingham riots, right? So this is early 60s and stuff. This is peak civil rights, like dogs and hoses and Brown v. the Board of Education. And like there is like a revolution in the black community of America. And it's teaming up with a lot more liberal people and stuff like that. But every city, there's fucking protests, there's riots. I mean, like it is a crazy time in America, right? And something happens. JFK calls up MLK and he says, listen, you're nonviolence. I want you to come to Washington and I want you to stand side by side with your fellow American politicians, and white people and black people will march side by side and we're going to speak to nonviolence. This is where he gives the I Have a Dream speech, the most iconic moment of the civil rights movement. But guess what? The moment that happens, the moment that the nonviolence and we're all side by side and white man and black man get along, the movement begins to die. All the revolutions stop, all the protests in the streets stop. And Malcolm X said that was the death of the civil rights movement right there. A pacification of the public. Yeah. You take away the grassroots, you give it a label, and you make the label public, and suddenly that's all people see, you know? And the identity of it is no longer in the hands of the people out in the streets. It's already been curated. And I think that sort of shit happens all the time. And we can't let it happen if we want something, if we want change in this country, man. And otherwise, it's just going to be the same puppet master show. I really hate what's happening, dude.
So what did Malcolm X suggest? What would have been the proper response? Complete
To let
revolution?
the revolution keep it going.
Do
Yeah,
not
he
unite with the white man that wants to be your friend. Just only unite with the brother and then go to war.
Yes, he wasn't fundament. He did believe in segregation at the time. He changes his mind later on, but he fundamentally believed that the nature of revolutions was the moment they left the grassroots, the moment people start like somebody tries to take over them, that's when they stop being revolutions, right? He's like the second you lose that street, that ground element, it's over. It begins to die, and
Mm.
he was right. It died after that, man. It never, it got a lot of political victories, but in terms of the real victories of the civil rights movement, nah, no success after that.
What does that mean, no success?
Like, for example, Martin Luther King goes to Chicago to try to clean up the ghettos, try to like do kind of economic reforms and stuff like that. He's kicked out of the city. The black people don't support him. They say like, you don't represent black power. You don't represent us. You're too Christian. Why are you the center of this movement? Why not us, the Chicago people? You're some dude from Alabama, you know, goes to LA, same problem. The John Meredith March, big march where we have all these black people trying to support John Meredith as he tries to gain entry to the University of Mississippi, right? The march collapses because the movement can't agree on who's in charge. Like, oh, it should be MLK. Oh, it should be the SNCC. That should be blah, blah, blah. And it just ends up disintegrating into
But
nothing.
if you go with the black power, I mean, you're destined to lose, right? Because your ultimate goal is to wipe out everybody else, right? It's not black.
No, no. The ultimate goal of Black Power was to have black communities be exclusive, right? To have segregation, but the black people control their own means of production, their own politics, everything within them, top to bottom. It is
But
a entirely black
well,
community.
that's unrealistic. That's impossible. No race operates that way unless you got your own country.
But ideals are what revolutions are built on.
Yeah, but
You
they're
know what I mean?
stupid ideals. That's a stupid ideal because it would never happen.
Same thing about America, right? I'm sure it was absolutely retarded to think of a democracy in an age of kings. You know, people are like, yeah, we tried that with the Greeks. That was fucking stupid. They ended up killing themselves, you know? But that's how it works.
Yeah, democracy and race is a little bit different of an argument. Hmm.
You know that, Dean, you probably know about this, but the FBI sent letters to MLK saying like, we know you're like a womanizer, you know, you
White
had sex
women.
with white women.
He loved them. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like they wrote a letter and they said like, hey, you should just kill yourself. Like you're like you know, a blot on the black race and all this stuff. Like that's legit. That's all legit, right?
It's legit. But, you know, the other thing is like the speech before he dies, right? He says he's going to die that night. He knows, right? Like he gets the speech and he says famously, he's like, you know, I believe that we're going to make it to the promised land. I'm not going to make it there with you, you know? In fact, he says life is very short, and I think this is probably going to be the end of mine. And he's shot that night. because those letters, they kept coming in, coming in, coming in. And I fundamentally believe that there was probably orchestration from Hoover to make MLK disappear. I really do. Yeah.
Could be. I never understood the Black Power movement though. It was
Neither did the
illogical.
black people.
Yeah.
They all disagreed on what it meant. Some people thought it meant pride. Some people meant black supremacy. Some people it meant unity. They were totally divided on what it meant.
That's how I summarize the black race is like a race, at least in America, that is ultimately divided, always just fragmented.
Well, because they are. It's as different as it's as diverse as Europe. You know what I mean? Africa, right? We're talking about like different cultures, different religions, different identities, and they're all just thrown on a boat and vomited up into America. And the only thing you have is this unifying identity of skin and a history, you know? And that is what you have to build an entire community off of, you know? So, yeah, it makes sense that there's division.
Uh, I think there's an interesting parallel because, Moses wasn't allowed into the Holy Land.
That's why he says it. Moses didn't make it to the promised land. He was denied by God.
Right. So God said to speak to a rock so it would give forth water, and Moses hits it with a stick twice. And I guess he's like, "Oh, you can't get in now," like you really messed up. I wonder if he was referring to his own transgressions, like, "Hey, I'm too far gone. I've had sex with too many white women. Like I can't." That could have
Absolute,
been
dude.
it.
If I was the leader of a Black Power movement, regardless of the interpretation, and they had evidence on me, like, yeah, we got you fucking 60 women and 59 of them are going to talk, and we got you on video, I'd be like, take me
It is weird because
out.
that totally is a thing. Like, there's so many like super powerful black dudes with white women. Dave Chappelle, he's married to an Asian girl. You
Sure,
know,
sure.
Jordan Peele, the Get Out guy,
He's half
he's
white
married to
anyway.
a
He's
woman.
half white.
He
But
half
he's
white?
but he's all
He
about
looks
Black
all
Power.
black.
He's
He looks
50%
all
white.
black.
He's 50% white.
That is fast. I would have thought the other guy was the bald
Well,
guy was.
he's 50% white too. They're both
Oh,
half.
they're both. I didn't even
But
realize
they
that.
they always lean toward the Black Power. Always.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting chasm with that when you're half black. That the majority of people seem to feel like they have to support that side. Like they have
Well,
to
I mean,
be.
that's Obama, man. You know, Obama was that's all black, man. You know, even though he's half.
I find that with most mixed people that they really embrace one side and disregard the other. Not
Have you ever
always.
seen? Have you seen them embrace the white side?
Asian, half white. Usually, that's the case.
I find that's more ABC, meaning if they're born in America, then yeah. But
Depends on their experience in the Asian culture, because Asian culture experience can be really awful.
mm,
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. Nice. I feel like we've done a lot of racial stuff today, a lot of Holocaust stuff, a lot of kitty porn, like good stuff all around, man. You know,
As usual.
if you had to be blackmailed by the FBI, this would be a good episode to send. You know, just saying. You know, so I feel like we did our work today.
Yeah, I really hope you're never going to try to get into politics, Chase, 'cause this one's gonna haunt you.
Why? What did I say? I was fucking neutral. Fucking for
Oh,
the masses and the
Yes, he's for kitty porn, AI kitty porn. It can save people. It can save
I
people.
think he's
Did you
referring to
listen to
me
the
not
episode?
minding eating people, which I don't. I'm open to it. I wonder if it
There
tastes
you
like
go,
pork.
man.
I do. I wonder if they're
All
accurate.
big.
That's
Man,
all.
I'm curious myself. In Austin,
Pork
we
tastes
also
good. Yeah.
yeah, we learned about your supple hairless body and how you have sex multiple times a day. I just like I feel like you really connected with the audience in a lot of ways, man.
It
Good.
can be deviant, that boy. Yeah, that's what I got from today.
Deviant is
okay.
the word.
Is Chase gonna join us in the next book?
Is there a
Uh,
new book? Is there a new book?
it's coming
We
soon,
finished this
man.
week. Yeah,
Are we
right. This is
picking the
the
new
last
book? Are we picking the new book? Or do
Yeah,
you already picked it?
it's yet to be decided. I think we should
Okay.
Austin,
probably talk
what
about
the
it.
fuck, man? I texted you this week. You didn't respond to me. I was really upset about
No,
that.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
About the Tibet culture, huh?
Oh, I never responded to that. You're right.
Yeah.
You're
What the fuck, man? All right. I know you're fucking all day and
right.
can't slap the dick out of your mouth when I need to. Oh, we're still recording. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for listening to Divine Brothers podcast. We will see you next time. Bye bye.